Hello, this is your host, Dr. Casey Bradley. Welcome to the Real P3 podcast, brought to you by the Sun Swine Group and Swine Nutrition Management. Welcome to the World Pork Expo special series, and this episode will focus on animal health. First, I have an in-depth interview with Merck Animal Health veterinarian Dr. Brien, and we will be discussing their new circumvent CML vaccine that was launched at World Pork Expo. It is a 3-in-1 vaccine that protects pigs against porcine circovirus types 2A and 2D, Mycoplasma hypopneumoniae, and Lawsonia intercalarius, or ileitis as we would know it. Just quickly, can you state your name and position and company?
Yes, so Brett O'Brien. I am a technical service veterinarian with Merck Animal Health. I've been there a little over 6 years.
Well, it's wonderful to have Dr. O'Brien on the Real P3 and sharing it through SwineWeb. So multiple channels here if you're listening to it on different places. But I have a few questions to discuss the awesome launch. So I really think the industry is starting to come together and make solutions that work for the producer.
Yeah.
I hear that all over, but not only changing our messaging, we're actually innovating to help the producer.
Absolutely.
So for somebody who's given a lot of vaccines in her career, thank you, Merck.
No,
the 3-in-1.
We are super excited. We know everyone always clamors, to do more with less. And so having the opportunity to have a first of its kind, being able to put a 3-in-1 of PCV2, Mycoplasma hypopneumoniae, and Lawsonia intercalarius all together in one ready-to-use bottle just helps from a convenience, fewer injections, which as you know, really yields less stress for the pigs and the caretaker in that vaccination process, less product handling issues, less waste on the farm, etc. So the other nice thing too is that it is a single dose that's only a 2 ml dose. So our standalone products for circumvent PCV MG2 and the Porcellus ileitis, which the CML product has the same proven antigens and adjuvant that are in each of those, but those single dose products would be 2 cc's each. When you've got this combination circumvent CML, we were able to do it and bring the volume down to just a resulting 2 cc's. So that to me, especially given the age that we vaccinate pigs, that's a big thing. And for me, I'm very passionate about welfare, and so to have that opportunity to put less volume in and again fewer injections is a big deal. So.
Well, definitely. I mean, that was one of the things we're talking about, 4 mils, and I'm like, we need to get lower if we're doing a 3-week-old pig, because I've watched technicians and stuff. You cannot inject, in my mind, a 4 mils in that size of pig anyways.
It's hard. That is correct. And folks are always clamoring, for that reduced volume need, in addition to, I know everyone's dream is let's get everything we can in the one. And so that's why we're excited. For me, I know there's diseases that we struggle with on farms, and when especially as a veterinarian, when I come through and work through challenges, oftentimes we have to add things to people's plate to try to get through different challenges. So when I have a combination product hit the floor and be able to finally take something away out of the daily process, that's exciting. So customers clamored for it, and we're excited to finally be able to provide this.
So to me, it's a major step forward for our industry.
Thank you.
It's interesting you brought up the regulatory. Obviously, I've done research most of my life, so I understand the challenges. Do you think with this 3-in-1, will the process get faster or easier to get more of these combinations done, since we've had some dual, vaccines, and now the 3-in-1? And
yeah, it is a longer process to do this, because when you add more together, you still have to demonstrate efficacy for each component, and the regulatory agencies want to make sure, we have to do onset of immunity, we have to do the duration of immunity for each fragment that goes into into a product. So I'm not sure, so it does take longer to get there, even though there were standalone products already. I don't know if everyone recognizes that, that labor that goes behind the scenes.
Yeah, interesting that they made you do the safety work too when you've already proven safety of each of those individual vaccines.
Well, you do end up doing it is a new formulation, even though it's the same antigen, same proven adjuvant, but to bring it down into that 2 cc dose and to bring everything together, I do stand behind we want to make sure, for us at Merck, whatever comes out of our hands, you're going to get the same proven efficacy that you've had before from a disease control, and then it's also from a safety standpoint, right? We want everyone comfortable with it. For this one, we're excited. This is our launch, but we have already put it into a little over 200,000 pigs to date, and so I can, from a safety standpoint, say it's same experience. Yes, it is, and the same experience.
That was not cool, so we'll have to edit that out.
No problem.
So I think kind of what I picked up on as a scientist listening to you a little bit, it was the MDF adjuvant.
Yeah.
I hate saying that word, but
yeah.
It's a challenge. But was a secret of being able to lower that dose and combining them, getting them kind of, or not?
No, because that is our same adjuvant that we use in porcellus ciliitis or our circumvent PCV MG2 or those standalone circumvent PCV G2. What that is, so MDF is microsol diluvac forte, and it's a dual oil immersion. And what that really does, it's a dual oil immersion of both vitamin E and mineral oil, and having that DF or the vitamin E sort of coats the oil micelles for greater antigen exposure and a more robust immune response. So that's where we get it really magnifies and ensures that solid protection, the level of protection that really stimulates the immune system and is unique for our product. So, yeah.
Well, that's kind of also a misnomer about vaccines. You were talking about our animals or our people. We're allergic to the vaccine, and it's usually the adjuvant that we're allergic to, correct?
There can be components, yeah. There's multiple components that can be in there, but yes, that's one from
about with that safety study, the site of injection and that reaction, because that's where you'll initially start seeing some of that.
Correct, and the adjuvants are there specifically for that. So if you were to just put the antigen alone, the adjuvant stimulates that immune system, so the cells come in and then see the antigen that is paired with it to sort of elicit that, get the immune response started. So the stronger that is, or the more pronounced, then you've got, but like you said, it's a balance, right? Mm-hmm. That you want to make sure it's safe enough that pigs can tolerate that, but you get a high level of protection elicited. So, yeah.
I'm going to take you down on vaccinations and ask you as a veterinarian.
Yeah.
Because I have also been working in how can we improve antigens and through nutritional strategies with combinations of vaccines. And the concern I've always had from a production level and a nutritionist, are we vaccinating at the wrong time? We talked about a 3-week-old pig. So most of the producers I know work with either do it right before weaning or right after weaning when they come into the nursery. And we're already that high stress event.
Right.
Do you think we need to consider different vaccination times? Because I even noticed you said we can go down to 3 days on some of this now, or?
This product, Circumvent CML, is for 3 weeks of age or older.
Okay.
Yep. There are other vaccines that are labeled to go down to 3 days of age, but nope, Circumvent CML is a 3 weeks of age or older. But I know what you're talking about because, for us, that's why label claims you'll find on vaccines have a minimum, and then it can be or older, to give veterinarians the flexibility to put it in where it should. But the balance always becomes in the field. You want to make sure you get the vaccine and the protection on board before the animal actually, faces that disease pressure, that organism coming at it. So there is a specific time. So you've got to monitor your herds to know when is that exposure happening. But then you also have to balance the compliance end of it. Mm-hmm. And so I know in different, production systems that can be more trying to know where's the easiest spot, where's the safest point in production that is convenient, that I can ensure that every pig gets the shot that I give them. So it's that balance.
Because they can't run away from you too much.
That's right. And I think that's why you do see most right at weaning. But I think, I think you're right. You've got to, for me, again, I'm driven by welfare and doing what's right for the pig. And so you've got to factor in, all those pieces to determine where's the best placement, right, for it. So
let's get into the breeding herd. So obviously we can vaccinate as young as 3 weeks. Do you feel like with some of these different diseases we need multiple boosters of this, or is that kind of down the pipeline of kind of going into that?
I know that, so our product would not be labeled for use. We haven't done studies on use in breeding animals. However, I do know that some veterinarians do and producers do use, require some booster and replacement animals, et cetera, at a later age. You've just got to balance what, mm-hmm. again, what's circulating on the farm, making sure, you're monitoring where their antibody levels are at to know when is it warranted to re-stimulate their immune system with a potential booster. That's why, with our, even our circumvent PCV MG2 and the porcellus ileitis, we have in those products we have a flex dose label of either a 1 or a 2, and so it is situation dependent in terms of which and how you're going to mm-hmm. apply that one. So yeah.
So with these diseases, there are some vaccines that we give to the sow,
mm-hmm.
and it goes through passive immunity to their piglets in the colostrum and things. Is that ever a possibility with these diseases? And then we talk about ensuring every pig gets it through the colostrum, maybe be the easiest, right? Though we're not injecting all the piglets, but the mom instead. Is that ever a possibility with these diseases, or?
So I know that most of the vaccines that we administer pre-farrow to dams are typically tend to be enteric pathogens that the piglets face in the farrowing house when they're still on milk from her and able to get that both the IgG and the IgA to help, because that piglet is still, as when born, is really naive and just building immunity and relies on mom's milk, right, for both the colostrum and the milk lactogenic immunity during that period. The dilemma becomes, for some of our targets can be maternal antibody interference, and then also that longevity or duration. So I think for diseases such as Circo, Myco, Lawsonia, which usually set up a bit later in pigs, that's why we end up having to turn to a growing pig vaccination, because the length of time, right, and the appropriate amount of coverage that you would get is more warranted there. The pre-farrow vaccination, though, with things like Prosystem RCE or other PDB vaccines, there you're really trying to target that protection during the farrowing house period, or it's a short-lived just into an early nursery for some things. So, but not something that we are giving up on. So I am always we're driven by what customer needs, and so we do always are actively looking for other novel solutions or innovation that can make, extend the duration of protection or ease of administration, et cetera. We know the trials and tribulations, that we face having to give that, and even the labor, again, the labor constraints, all of that, so.
Well, you've combined 3 diseases into one, but there's some other vaccines that some of the producers I work with give, and that's E. coli and PRRS.
Yep.
How do you feel, like, from a veterinarian perspective of should we combine them all in one time frame? Should we do it at different times to optimize that?
Yeah, so again, that is going to depend on when the pig is going to face that natural pressure, right? So PRRS oftentimes, depending on where those pigs might be growing out at, might have more pressure or risk for introduction that you need to get it in early. For some, that might be a later, and they have the option, to give that vaccine in the nursery period. So again, it's hard. I'm giving a typical vet answer of saying it depends, because it really does. It does. So, what we always encourage when we start off helping someone develop a vaccination program with multiple vaccines included is doing a monitoring, schematic to know what does the disease profile look like in your specific herd, what risks are nearby, right, as well, so that you can pick the right times. Sometimes if there's a lot of pressure coming at them early, you've got to get more into them at an early time. So it is a balance. We, though, as veterinarians also try to, balance if there is an option to spread that out. And, we want to do what's best for the pigs at the end of the day. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
What are some key strategies then to enhance and optimize antibody production with vaccines?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing is making sure when you're administering vaccination to pigs that the environment and the situation is best or ideal. And so what I mean for that is we want to make sure that the pigs are free of disease at the time that you're vaccinating, because you don't want their immune system already compromised fighting something else when you're trying to vaccinate, right? So vaccinating healthy pigs is going to elicit the best immune response. Understanding too, if you're going into a younger pig, if you're vaccinating with something that is known to have maternal antibody interference, that you're doing that screen ahead of time. Doing the diagnostics, like I mentioned, making sure you're ahead of an actual disease pressure that's present. There's nothing worse than having a disease already set up and then you're vaccinating after the fact. Well, then you're only really protecting a subpopulation. And then for me is also, is the environment right? So are we cooling the barns down? If it's in a nursery situation, is the ventilation good? Is our handling techniques of the animal right? We want to do a minimal stress to the animal at time of vaccination so that the immune system can elicit the right response. Those are what's key to me.
Awesome. Now, this doesn't have to do with the 3-in-1, but following a lot of different smaller producers and things, working with them, a lot of them are scared of mRNA vaccines. And when I talk to people about mRNA vaccines, what they don't realize is the livestock industry was trying to develop them way before COVID. COVID just accelerated the technology to get them to market. And how do we talk about this fear because of COVID and the vaccination and all that? How are we going to get around that? Because there's a lot of consumer, especially for the beef industry, because that's primarily where it's targeted at the moment. But how do we get past that in communication with consumers so they're not afraid of that technology?
Yeah, I think, embedded with any new technologies that are out there, there's always a gap in terms of a lag in the education standpoint and understanding information. Our company, and myself in particular, I'm driven by science. So I want to support innovation or things that are going to provide us tools that are going to make our animals happier, healthier, more efficient, etc. So to me, the gap really lies in a time frame of giving the appropriate information and data and understanding, so they know it takes the initial fear factor, right, out of something new, and leaping to speculations of not understanding, really what it's intended to do, and know that these things as they develop are safe. So we fully support the continuation of scientific innovation and technology, et cetera. But it is a difficult landscape, regardless of which subject of new item comes up. So.
Well, in case you're not familiar with the real P3, and I didn't prep you for this, but I allow my guests to turn the table and ask me a question. So, or any last minute thoughts if you don't feel comfortable.
No. So one that is I'm always driven to know is, because I am driven by innovation or what our producers need. So all the time I'm always asking folks, what gets you most excited on the horizon, or what is a large, gap that you would say is needed in the industry? What would be your wish list?
Well, I really think it goes back to diagnostics. And, when I was with DSM Innovation, we started on Verax, launched that in poultry. And I go to them kind of leading that diagnostics. And really, you talked about, from a diagnostic perspective, we do that a lot with veterinarians, right? And diseases, but we don't do a lot of interaction with nutrition, metabolism, other factors, right? So we really need to come up, in my mind, with better diagnostics. We need the diagnostics happening on the veterinarian side to really hone in with a nutritionist, so we can do more machine learning. We got these silos built. We have huge databases. And they're not connected. So we're really, I think we're at the forefront of being able to get there. But it is going to be a challenge. And everybody, likes to protect their data. Not everybody's open access, sharing data. But I think that's like the new horizon and need that we need to get, because I have to be interacting with a veterinarian just as much as a nutritionist, and vice versa. And there's always been that challenge that we don't talk to each other. And, and it's, to me, the future is we have to have a much more partnership and a good relationship of, feeding our pigs, treating our pigs, preventing disease, because we all care about welfare. Right? Making the job easier and stuff. And
you're preaching to the choir here, because actually before I went to vet school, I obtained a master's in nutrition, so I am in that field, or understand that piece, and I completely understand the gap, right? For me, yes, from a diagnostic standpoint, or even from a therapeutic intervention standpoint, feed management, production management, the environments, right, we're putting them in, all of it factors into, when we've got these new, a lot of discovery still to do in that microbiome space, the interactions of how a vaccine plays with where they might be at. I agree. We are just at the tip of the iceberg on so many fronts. And to your point, I get excited because there is more work being done on data integration, et cetera. And I have seen, and I really want to commend our pork producers, that they have been, in the last decade, to me, a lot more conducive for information sharing, knowing the benefit of sharing that amongst one another, and so I hope that reaches, to your point, into all the broad spectrums within production, the nutrition, the genetics, the veterinary, et cetera. Waste management. I mean, it's all one cohesive, right? Environment that shapes a pig. A pig is not a pig everywhere the same, right? So,
exactly. Well, I appreciate it, Dr. O'Brien. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.